I discovered my husband had cheated with my best friend while I was working overseas at a baby shower they hosted for their unborn child. I returned from my work trip earlier than scheduled. I didn't tell anyone I was returning. I wanted to surprise Miguel. When I arrived on our street, I noticed a few automobiles parked in front of our house. The garden was adorned with blue and pink balloons, and a banner proclaimed, "Welcome our little miracle." I parked my car a block away and walked over. The door was slightly open, and music and laughter could be heard from inside. When I walked in, I froze in the center of the living room. Carmen, my dearest friend, was clearly 6 months pregnant. My mother-in-law, Rosa, was softly massaging her belly as my mother poured drinks. Gifts were arranged on a beautiful table. "So, is the nursery ready?" my Aunt Elena said. "Almost," Carmen responded. Miguel insisted on painting it himself. "He's been working on it every weekend." My spouse strolled in at that very moment, bearing more drinks. He approached Carmen and hugged her from behind, his hands resting on her stomach. "We just need to set up the crib," he told us. "We picked it out together last week." I watched as my mother stiffened when she saw me. She hurried over. "Anna, we weren't expecting you today," she said softly, taking my arm. "Let's go outside. We need to talk." I pushed free from her grip. "Talk about what?" I inquired. "About how my husband got my best friend pregnant while I was working in another country." The buzz in the room subsided. Carmen was the first to notice me. Her face became pallid. Miguel stood motionless, his hands resting on her tummy. "Anna," he started. "Don't you dare," I interrupted him. "How long have you been cheating on me?" No one responded. My father, standing in a corner, was unable to look me in the eye. "I can explain," Carmen replied, taking a step forward. "We didn't want you to find out like this." "Oh. And how were you planning to tell me? After the baby was born? Or when they turned 18? My mother-in-law stepped in. "Anna, please think about the baby. Carmen doesn't need this stress in her condition." "Her condition?" I asked, laughing dryly. "The same condition I was in 2 years ago when I lost my baby. Where was your concern then, Rosa?" The hush that ensued was deafening. My mom tried again. "Honey, I know this is difficult." "Difficult for whom?" I demanded. "For me, who worked non-stop for 9 months while my husband was sleeping with my best friend? Or for all of you, who had to keep up the charade?" Miguel eventually walked away from Carmen. "Anna, can we talk privately? Don't make a scene." "A scene?" I sneered. "No, Miguel. A scene would be telling everyone how you convinced me to take that overseas job. How you said we needed the money to start our family." I turned to face Carmen. "Did he tell you that? Or did he say he was lonely and abandoned while his cruel wife chased her career?" Carmen began crying. "It wasn't like that. We didn't plan this." "Of course not," I replied mockingly. "I suppose you just tripped and fell pregnant by my husband? These things happen, right?" The visitors started shifting uncomfortably. Some grabbed their bags and prepared to go. My father has finally spoken up. "Anna, calm down. You're upset." "Upset?" I laughed bitterly. "No, Dad, I'm perfectly calm. In fact, I'm grateful." My mother frowned, puzzled. "Grateful?" she repeated. "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "Because now I see everyone for who they really are. My husband, the liar. My best friend, the traitor. And my family, the cowards who chose to protect this lie instead of me." I strolled over to the present stand and chose one at random. "This one's yours, Mom," I said, holding it up. "You bought a nice gift for your son-in-law's mistress's baby." "Anna, please," my mother begged. I ripped the package paper open. The baby's attire was white with blue embellishments. "How thoughtful," I replied, my voice full with sarcasm. "I hope you kept the receipt." Miguel moved closer, attempting to take the gift from my hands. "Enough, Anna, you're making a fool of yourself." "Making a fool of myself?" I snorted. "No, Miguel, you did that all on your own, getting my best friend pregnant while I was paying all the bills." My mother-in-law stood up in indignation. "This is too much," she exclaimed. "Miguel was just looking for the happiness you couldn't give him. Always busy, always working." "You're right, Rosa," I responded coldly. "I was too busy working. Working to pay the mortgage on the house where your son was sleeping with my best friend." I gazed around the room. Every familiar face suddenly resembled that of a stranger. "You know what?" I said. "You can keep the house, the furniture, the gifts. But, Miguel, I suggest you get a good job because you won't have access to my money anymore." Miguel's cheeks turned pale. "What are you talking about?" I'm talking about how, while I was overseas, I wasn't just working, I was also consulting a lawyer. I have proof of every penny I spent on this house, on you, on our marriage. I turned and went out of the house, not looking back. My hands were trembling, my breathing was uneven, but I refused to give up in front of them. They did not deserve to see my tears. I went away, ignoring the curious eyes of the neighbors, who had most likely heard everything that had happened. I got in my car and slammed the door shut. My fingers grew white from the tight hold I had on the steering wheel. My vision had dimmed, but I refused to cry. I started the engine and drove away from that nightmare, with no destination or direction. My phone was full of messages. I missed calls from my mother. Miguel sent text messages. Even Carmen. Please, Anna, we need to talk. This wasn't supposed to happen this way. You don't understand the whole situation. Oh, I understand. I really understood. I realized that while I was working to support my home, family, and marriage, they were all together. Every time Miguel called and said he missed me, I knew he was telling a lie. I realized that whenever Carmen stated she was busy and couldn't talk, it was because she was busy with him. A nasty taste entered my mouth. Disgust. I'm disgusted with myself for not noticing it sooner. After driving for a time, I turned into the parking lot of an unrelated hotel. I needed someplace to breathe. I wasn't returning to that house. That house now served as a monument to my humiliation. I headed to the front desk and reserved a room for a few days. The receptionist gave me an odd look, possibly due to my untidy appearance, but handed me the key without asking any questions. When I entered the room, I shut the door and collapsed on the bed. Only then did the weight of everything overwhelm me. I curled up and hugged myself, letting the tears flow, tears of fury, disdain, and a deep, stifling agony that constricted my chest. But I couldn't do this forever. I needed to do something. The next morning, I went directly to my lawyer's office. He was already aware of my condition and had all of the essential documentation prepared to guarantee that I get out of this problem with as little damage as possible. I want to start the process today, I stated firmly. Divorce, property division, everything. And I want it to be clear that Miguel won't see a single cent of my money. He nodded. You have more than enough evidence to contest any claim he might make. The house is in your name, all the expenses were covered by you, he has no rights to anything. I took a deep breath. Good. Then let him find out the hard way. I walked out of the office with an unusual sensation of relief. For the first time in a long time, I felt in charge of my own life. My phone vibrated. Miguel. I ignored it. Minutes later, a message appeared. We need to talk, please, Anna. I merely said, talk to my lawyer. Days passed, and the calls and messages continued. Until one afternoon, while I was drinking coffee at a cafe near the hotel, someone approached my table. Miguel. He looked terrible, deep eye bags, unkempt hair, but I had no pity. Anna, please. He sat across from me without being asked. I didn't want you to find out like that. I crossed my arms. Oh? But how did you want me to find out? With an invitation to the baby shower? He ran his palm over his face, tired. This isn't how I wanted things to happen. I made a mistake. A mistake? I scoffed. Getting my best friend pregnant was not a mistake, Miguel. It was a choice. You decided to sleep with her. You decided to lie to me. You opted to have everyone cover for you. He lowers his head. I was lonely, Anna. You were never here. You were always traveling, always busy with work. I gave out a sour laugh. And why was I busy, Miguel? Because I was the one paying for our damn house while you sat at home doing nothing. He said nothing. You want to know the most ironic part? I asked. I took that position because I believed we were creating something together, and I made sacrifices thinking it was for the greater good. But while I was straining myself to exhaustion, you were ripping off my dearest friend. He gazed at me with desperation. I know I messed up, Anna, but can't we fix this another way? I leaned forward and looked right into his eyes. We're correcting it. My lawyer has already filed for divorce. You will not receive a penny from me. And as for that child, I hope you are a decent father, because I want you out of my life. Anna, please. It's over, Miguel. I stood up and went away, not looking back. The news quickly spread. My true friends, those who had not deceived me, stood by my side. And my family? Oh, they attempted to contact out. My mother contacted me several times and tried to justify everything. We didn't want to hurt you, sweetheart, it was complicated for all of us. You need to forgive. Forgive? I moved on. I eventually rebuilt my life. I left the motel and got a new apartment. I concentrated on my profession and future. And Miguel? He quickly learned that life was not as easy without the comfort I had supplied. A few weeks later, I got another note. Can we talk? I miss you. I smiled and deleted the message without responding, and for the first time in a long time, I felt liberated. When I finally received word that Miguel had been legally served with the divorce papers, I knew his real misery had only begun. He attempted to reach me in every manner possible. He called me dozens of times each day. I've sent an unending number of messages. He even showed up at places I frequented. But I did not respond. I did not give him a chance. I refused to allow him to control me. One night, when I was returning to my apartment, I noticed my mother standing outside. Anna, we need to talk. I rolled my eyes. I already knew what it was about. We have nothing to talk about. Miguel is desperate. You're taking everything from him, she exclaimed, as if I were the antagonist in this scenario. I crossed my arms. Oh, now he's the victim? Honey, he made a mistake, but that doesn't mean you should ruin his life, my mom replied. I laughed without humor. He ruined my life, Mom. He cheated on me, got my best friend pregnant, and all of you covered for them. And now you have the nerve to tell me that I'm being cruel. She groaned and reached for my hand, but I pulled away. What you're doing to him? This isn't right, Anna. Anger flared in my chest. Oh, you want to talk about what's right? I snapped at you. Was it right for me to pay the mortgage alone while he was screwing my best friend? Was it right that I worked my ass off while he played the perfect husband? Now, he gets to deal with the consequences. She looked at me as though I were a monster. He has nowhere to go, she muttered. I shrugged. Not my problem. She shook her head, disbelieving. I didn't raise you to be this way, Anna. And I didn't expect my own mother to take the side of a cheating bastard. I turned around and walked into my building, not looking back. Days passed, and Miguel's plight only worsened. Since I had paid for everything, he was now drowning in bills. The mortgage payments were past due, and without my money, he swiftly fell into financial despair. Then came the eviction. I knew it was coming when I got confirmation that he hadn't made any payments. And I made it a point to personally see the moment he was forced to leave my house. When I arrived, the place was in disarray. Boxes were spread over the front yard. Miguel was disputing with the eviction officer. Carmen stood behind him, gripping her pregnant tummy with a terrified gaze. Anna, he said when he spotted me. You can't do this to me. I crossed my arms, feeling a dark sensation of contentment grow within me. I can, and I did. This isn't fair. I lived in this house. No, I replied coldly. I paid for this house. You were just a parasite living in it. His face flushed red with frustration. Where the hell do you expect me to go? I shrugged. Not my problem. Carmen gazed at me with desperation in her eyes. Anna, please, please. She had the audacity to look me in the eyes and say please. I took a step towards her. Oh, so now you can say my name? Before it was just, I hope she never finds out, wasn't it? She lowers her head. It wasn't supposed to be like this. But it is. And now, you and Miguel have to deal with it. Miguel rubbed his hands across his face, appearing weary. You don't have a heart, he mumbled. I tilted my head. Funny, because you sure loved that heart when it was paying all your bills. He opened his mouth to argue, but then closed it again when the officer approached. Time's up. You need to vacate the property now. Miguel's expression changed to one of utter terror. He looked around and realized he was out of options. He grabbed a box and banged it on the ground. You just want to see me destroyed, don't you? I leaned in closer, meeting his stare without pity. Yes. He clenched his jaw and marched out, Carmen trailing behind him. I stood there, watching him leave, broken, homeless, and powerless. Over the next few days, my entire family turned against me. My aunts called me. My mother arrived at my apartment again. Even my father, who normally remained out of things, attempted to intercede. Anna, he's sleeping on your mother-in-law's couch. Don't you think this has gone too far? No, Dad, I don't. Carmen is pregnant, they have nothing? Great, I remarked, my voice full of sarcasm. Then Miguel can finally do what he should have done a long time ago. Get a job. My mother threw up her hands, exasperated. You're obsessed with revenge. And you're obsessed with protecting a cheater. They couldn't change my mind. And Miguel? Oh, Miguel was in ruins. There is no home. There's no comfort. He no longer had access to the money he had been stealing from me for years. I heard from some mutual friends that he had started working odd jobs to make ends meet, but it wasn't enough. And then the unavoidable occurred. Miguel walked up to my apartment. He appeared unhappy, thinner, with black circles beneath his eyes. "Anna, please. I have nothing left," he said. I stared at him. "I know I need help." I inclined my head and pretended to think. "Like I needed help when I found out you were cheating on me?" He closed his eyes, annoyed. "I was an idiot. I know that. But I can't change the past." I crossed my arms. "No, but you sure as hell can suffer in the present." His palms tightened into fists as he swallowed his pride. "You don't have to be this cruel." "Oh, but I do," I replied, my tone mocking. "I learned from the best." With that, I slammed the door in his face. For the first time in years, I felt peaceful. Miguel was now discovering what life was like without me. And me? I was finally free. Miguel sunk deeper, exactly as I predicted. There is no home, no money. There's no comfort. He had transformed from a privileged, dependent husband to a desperate man who hopped from job to job simply to stay afloat. And me? I moved on. I did not feel sorry for him. In fact, every time I heard of another calamity in his life, I felt a strange kind of joy. It was a great taste of justice to know that all he had done to me would come back to haunt him. And then I got the finest news I'd had in months. Carmen has filed for divorce. I discovered it from an acquaintance, one of the few people who still dared to speak with me after everything had transpired. She ran into me in a cafe, paused for a bit, and smiled slightly before dropping the bombshell. She left him. I blinked. What? Carmen. She filed for divorce. And she wants alimony. I couldn't stop myself from laughing, and it was a big, true laugh from the core. "Are you serious?" I said, still chuckling. "Dead serious. Miguel can't hold a stable job, and she doesn't want to be the one supporting him." Oh, the irony was great. Carmen had swore Miguel was her genuine love. I worked hard to support him, but he clung to me like a parasite. I had now done the same thing to him as he had to me. I left him when he was no longer useful. "And she wants alimony?" I inquired, still beaming. "Yeah. She claims he promised to take care of her, and now that she has a baby, she needs financial support." I couldn't stop laughing. "Please tell me," I responded, chuckling. "Does Miguel even have money to pay her?" My acquaintance smirked. "No. I lost it." Miguel hadn't simply lost everything I'd given him. Now, even the lady he betrayed me for was financially ruining him. Karma had come for him. And this time, he had no one left to leech from. I had to see it. The following week, I made an unintentional appearance at a location I knew Miguel still frequented, a dingy bar where we used to hang out. One of the few places he could still afford. He was sitting at the counter, resembling a ghost of his old self. Thinner. Dark rings appeared under his eyes. His beard is untidy. Of course, he was holding a cheap beer. I strolled in gently and took my time, then sat 2 seats away. He quickly noticed me. His expression hardened. "What do you want?" he asked quietly, his voice raspy and exhausted. "Nothing," I replied, picking up my own drink. "Just enjoying the view." He breathed deeply. "Are you happy now?" I sipped, enjoying the moment. "Yes, very." He scoffed and shook his head. "You think this is funny?" "Miguel, I find this hilarious. You abandoned our marriage for Carmen, and look where you are today. She left you and took what little you had left." He ran a hand over his face, obviously fatigued. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand completely. Tell me how your great love fell apart so swiftly." He remained silent for a long time before glancing at his empty glass. "She said she couldn't be with someone who had nothing to offer." I grinned. "Funny, right? That's exactly what you said about me." He closed his eyes, his jaw stiffening. "You don't get it, Anna." "Oh, I do. You were only suitable for her when it was convenient. Now that you can't provide the comfortable life she desired, she threw you away like junk." He did not argue, because he could not. I rose up, prepared to depart. "You know what's the best part?" I asked, staring down at him. "You deserve every bit of this." And I walked away, leaving Miguel to drown in his own despair. Following that day, I cut off all ties to my past. I alienated myself from my family. The hypocritical aunts who often told me to forgive. My mother insisted that I had gone too far. I owed nothing to any of them. I only owed myself. So I started afresh. I completely reconstructed my life. I bought a new apartment exclusively for myself. I sold everything that reminded me of that miserable period in my life. I donated some items. Others were burned. Miguel and Carmen were eliminated. I went out more. I met new folks. I enjoyed life without carrying dead weight on my back. For the first time in years, I had control over my life. And as I moved forward, Miguel kept falling apart. Months later, I learned that he had attempted to appeal the divorce decision, arguing that he deserved alimony instead. Of course, the judge laughed at him and refused everything. I also discovered that Carmen continued to drain what little money he had left. And me, I have never felt better. The world was finally as it should be. I was free. And Miguel was receiving just what he deserved.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.